Welcome to My Healthy Mind. I'm Michael Hunter. Statistically, more than 40 million adult Americans today are being called upon to act as primary caregiver for an aging parent or spouse, a special needs child, a seriously ill partner or family member. And that number will only increase as we live longer and longer lives. Naturally, most attention has been given to those elderly and ill loved ones who need our care. But what about the caregivers themselves? Who's taking care of them? With all the physically and emotionally draining hours given to the care of others, when do they even find time to think of themselves? Today, we look at the toll of caregiving, the stress, the exhaustion, the guilt felt by people doing this work all across the spectrum, and what we and caregivers themselves can do to help them get through it. I'm willing to bet that most of you watching have at some point in your lives found yourselves in the role of caregiver to a loved one. Traditionally, women have done this, but not always. It's work born out of necessity and compassion, but I think anyone who's ever taken it on would agree that it takes a lot out of you. Here with us is a man who's put a lot into caring for his beloved son, a quadriplegic who for the past 13 years has needed and will continue to need complete, intensive, round-the-clock care. LaDon Claiborne, welcome back to My Healthy Mind.
Thank you. Great to be here.
And you were with us about 6 years ago.
That's correct.
And it was about 7 years after your son had the freak accident that left him paralyzed.
Correct, yes.
And tell us, how is Drew doing right now?
Well, Drew's amazing. I can kind of honestly say he's in my opinion, it's unofficial, the healthiest quadriplegic in the world. We've worked really hard and was blessed to find a lot of specialized therapy that we use every night that works out every muscle in his body. So in almost 13 years, he's never had a pressure sore. He has no atrophy, no bone density loss. He actually lives a full life and does everything from running a business to socializing just like an able-bodied person was because his body's so healthy, but it does take a lot of work.
Tell me about some of the things you do to keep him so healthy.
Well, we were fortunate, very blessed to come across a particular product originally made for Christopher Reeves. And basically what it does is it replaces the signals that comes from your brain, which is a electric signal from your brain to activate your muscles. It replaces it artificially through these particular garments. And so every night we strap Drew's body up from top to bottom with these garments that are especially fitted for him. And we have these specialized electric stim machines that we program exercises into in 20-minute intervals. So Drew gets about 4.5 hours worth of a full body workout every night. And we were able to put about 10 inches back on his thighs and several inches on his calves and arms. And he is truly super healthy. And because of that, you know, he, like I say, he has no bone density loss of any significance, so you don't have to worry about fractures. He has no secondary health conditions. He is super healthy, but it's a lot of work, but it's worth it.
And it's evident that you not only care for him, you care a lot about him.
Oh, absolutely. You know, Drew's an incredible young man.
Does your whole family get involved in his treatment, or is there a primary person?
Well, primarily it's myself and my wife, his stepmom, Tracy Claiborne. We are the first line of defense because he lives in the home with us. We do, you know, his mother, his biological mother, when we have to break glass and when it's really tough, you know, I can reach out to her and she'll come do what she can. But it's just difficult for people who don't live in the home with someone who provides care to be completely active, involved in their day-to-day routine because they don't live there. You know, they have their own lives they have to kind of manage, and kind of difficult. But, you know, and he has aunts who support him in every way that he can, and my parents, his grandparents, they support him in every way he can. So I don't want to make it sound like we don't have support. We have a ton of support. But the physical part of the care is primarily handled by myself, my wife, and the nursing staff that he requires. But there's so much involved that in the day-to-day that, words are kind of hard to explain, but just to give you an idea, when you're a quadriplegic, you can't use your arms or your legs. So any and all activities that has to be done for him. That's hygienes, brushing his teeth, combing his hair, washing his face, washing his body, feeding him, giving him stuff to drink, getting him situated in his chair, transporting him, getting him where he wants to go. He is reliant on someone to do all these things for him. And then if you add the second component, if that wasn't enough, because he broke his neck at such a high level, it cut off his diaphragm, he's also 24 hours a day ventilator dependent. So he has a mechanical machine that gives him every breath he takes, in, out, all the time. Well, the challenge with that is that it's plugged into his trach right here in his throat. And that's the one area he still has feeling, because he can feel from the shoulder up. So it's very sensitive. And by the nature of it, the device that they put there to give him this air has to be very lightweight. It'd be too heavy to hang off his throat. So with it being so lightweight, it also lends to it's very easy for it to come off. So we tie it on and we do these different things, but if he has a uncontrollable spasm or stretch, or he stretches his hands uncontrollably, he can literally pull himself off his air supply. And so somebody has to be there at that point to reconnect it, to reposition him, to make sure he stays on his air, or he would die. It's about the most vital part of his need, is that there's a lot of people out here with paralysis who live a life and they don't require as much care as my son, but he not only has the paralysis, but he also has the need for a ventilator to take every breath. And that requires skilled care and people who don't know what to do, who's with him at all times. He goes out to have a good time, wants to go to the bar, and wants to have a little independence. His nurse or his parent or whatever, we got to be a booth or two away, keeping an eye on the vent, keeping an eye on him, because if he ever gets in trouble, we got to be able to react, get him and fix the issue. Now, as long as he's getting his air, he's fine. But that can change in a second. Absolutely in a second.
And you have to be right there all the time.
All the time. Even at night, our house never sleeps. There's someone awake 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. When the night nurse comes, they say, well, why can't she take a nap? Well, what if she's a hard sleeper and he comes off his air? Or he gets a plug and needs assistance, and he calls out and she can't hear him. Now, the ventilator does have alarms that goes off, but not every situation will trigger the alarm to go off. The machine could be blowing air in and out, but he may not be receiving it because he has a plug. So he has to alert someone. And so you have to be awake, watching the ventilator, watching him all night long while he sleeps. But of course, for us, it's a little different because we're doing the physical therapy stuff for him overnight while he's sleeping. So that keeps us busy. That usually takes about 2.5 hours to start the night. So from about 11:30 to 2 a.m. And then after that, we do range of motion. So because we're doing all that therapy and tighten up his muscles, he's going to be tight. So now we got to stretch everything. We stretch his arms, we stretch his legs, we stretch everything, and then we get him dressed. And we put his compression socks on, and we put his clothes on, and we do all these different things. And so from 5 a.m., we start at 5 a.m. with all that, so he can be in his chair ready to start his day by 9 a.m. Takes another 4 hours. With all this work we do at night and all the therapy, it truly pays off, because once Drew's in his chair, he's as independent as a person can be in this condition. He runs a nonprofit. He has environmental controls where he can control everything in his room from his chair, from his television and stereo to his lights and thermostats. He's bought special devices that allow him to game on his Xbox or work on his computer. I mean, he's even got a built-in electronic starter, so when he's ready to leave, he can start his own van and launch the ramp for him to go up. Now, he can't drive, but it gives him some independence. There's a lot of things he can just do for himself. And this is the reason why we do all this. The more we do at night and the healthier we keep him, the more independent he can be during the day. He goes out, he works, he dates. He's been on a few dates here lately, and he goes to the city, and it's nerve-wracking, but part of having the care is also his independence. He's able to go to Ferndale and go to meditation classes. He's able to go to the arts districts of Detroit and experience all the things that an able-bodied person wants to be able to experience. And he's able to do that independently and in a way that's fulfilling for him because A, he's healthy, and B, when we have the caregivers necessary, he has the ability to come and go as he wants. And I think the stigma that we are able to change when he's out in public, people meet him and they go from being caught off guard because he's in this big, huge chair and this machine making all this noise constantly to getting to know him and see him for who he is. And all of a sudden they realize that he's a pretty sharp young man who can do a lot of cool things and he's fun to hang around with. And the next thing you know, he's making new friends and they want to invite him to go do things and so forth. And it's a really beautiful thing to watch. But it takes a lot of effort every day. You know, we don't miss a day. Every day, the routine's the same. We want to keep the body as healthy as possible so you can have a full life during the day.
And you've been doing this for 13 years.
13 years.
And he is very strong and resilient.
Yes, he is. Strong and sturdy. Strong and sturdy.
And where do you see it leading to one day?
Well, he's going to walk again. He's going to run. You know, 1,000 days, one day in the Lord's eyes, and, you know, with no issues with the bones, no issues with the muscles. You know, we're just waiting for the right person to go, hey, this is the guy we want to bring to our clinical trial and see if we can't fix the one little spot in the spinal cord that needs to reconnect. Because once he does, everything else will work just fine. So, and he's still young. You know, he's 28 years old. You know, he can live a whole life still.
Have you given any thought that he is going to live a long life? He's strong.
Absolutely.
And eventually, you know, his parents won't be there. What happens next?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question because part of the motivation to go from just trying to raise money year after year to trying to create something reoccurring was that in mind. How do we make sure that he has the funds necessary to care for himself when he no longer has his mom and dad around? Drew's very capable of managing his care. I've taught him everything I do. He knows how to run ads. He knows how to interview. He knows how to look for the right people to care for him, but he needs the funds to do so. But with that said, there still has to be a backup plan. And if we don't meet those goals and we do get older and the means aren't there for him to do that, then the backup plan would be to create a joint living situation, maybe a assisted living home where he'd take his home wherever he's at, maybe invite one other person who's in a similar condition to him to live with him. So the pay sources, like they would have the same benefits so they could both pay the same person and be able to pay them enough so he's got the staff. So instead of having a nurse who's there to care for one person, they'd be there to care for two. And so it's not ideal. That's not the end game we want. We want him up, running, walking, and being independent. But yeah, we have to have a backup plan because the alternative is worse. The alternative would be that because he's ventilator dependent, that he spends his life in someone's acute care. You know, not a nursing home, not a rehab center, but some type of acute care where they have ventilators and people with trachs and things like that. And all the studies and things I've read is that the average person who ends up in one of those facilities are lucky to live 5 or 6 years. So it's almost like a death sentence for him to do something like that to him. And for someone who's otherwise so healthy, it would just break my heart if he had to spend his life in some place he don't need to be because he can't breathe on his own. He's healthy, he's strong, he's happy, he lives a full life. There's no reason why we wouldn't want to see that continue.
LaDon, what an incredible job you're doing.
Thank you.
Let's take a look.
When you think about all the things you do every day, eating, walking, brushing your teeth, breathing, those are the things Drew needs someone to help him with. But what's really amazing is how many things he's able to do for himself.
Next time you need to see a doctor, don't go to a doctor. Call Team Wellness Online. With Team Wellness Online, you can see a doctor or a therapist without waiting, usually within 24 hours. Your televisit is private and 100% secure, and you can take all the time you want. So next time you need to see a doctor or therapist, call Team Wellness online at 888-813-TEAM to make a virtual appointment, and we'll come to you.
Don, with all of the work that you put into your son's life and his care, how are you doing?
Well, good, honestly. Is it challenging? Yes. Do I have some tough days? I do. But I have a strong faith in God, and I thoroughly believe that He doesn't give you more than you can handle, and I think He picked me to see my son through this journey. More importantly, though, I have a son who's so committed to it all. He makes it easier. He never has a bad day. He never complains. He's never upset. He's never sad. And I say never sad. I mean, everybody has their better days, the bad days, but I mean, he's so positive, and it's contagious, and it motivates you to want to keep doing the things you do.
And that helps you take care of you.
Well, because of that, now I've learned. The first 10 years or so, I struggled with that, realizing that if I'm gonna do all these things for my son, I also gotta take care of myself. But over the last few years, as I've gotten older, I've dealt with some health ailments myself and so forth, and I've learned, and so I've lost weight, and I exercise, and I eat better, and I go to the gym, and he's kind of an example. We're doing all this stuff for him. He's working out every night. He's going to the gym 3 times a week. He's working out on the special equipment in his room. It's like, well, if he can do it, we can do it too, And so we eat better, we exercise more, we make it a point to take care of ourselves. But I do tend to forget me sometimes, and gratefully I got a great wife. She'll remind me, and she'll let me know when it's time for me to get a break. And I've got hobbies. I love to bowl. I would bowl at Wonderland Lanes in Commerce Township, and those guys all know our story, and they know that that's my outlet. I go, and once, twice a week, I go bowl. Sundays I'm at church, Orchard Grove Community Church, great family there, and, thanking God and worshiping Him. And, I've got a lot of healthy outlets that help keep me focused and keeps me going. But yeah, I've had to learn to take better care of myself over the years. It's your son, it's your child. So initially, your only thought is about your kid. I care more about him than I do my own life. So you're always worried that at any given moment, if taking time for yourself is going to be a detriment to the person you love. A lot of people don't understand about being a caregiver is that it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And even when we have staff, which is a difficult thing I love to talk about, when we have nursing and we have caregivers, it's like being a firefighter. You have to be ready. At any given moment, you got to be ready to go to work. You got to get ready to care for that person. And I don't think anybody enjoys or does a job 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days out of the year, but that's the life of a caregiver. Some of our challenges is that because of Drew being the way he is that we have to hire skilled nursing. And skilled nursing has become more difficult for a lot of different reasons, especially since the pandemic. Insurance and state programs, they exist and they do what they do, but sometimes it's just not enough. So we regularly, fundraise and have to raise money to supplement what they don't cover, and it can get expensive. The average rate for nurses have gone up so much since the pandemic that as much as they want to be there to help, they got to be paid a competitive wage. But we get through it, and we've been blessed to keep a core set of nurses, and sometimes we have to fill in here and fill in there. I've come off a pretty nice run here where I've had to cover the night shift for the last several nights for the last few months, and it's been tough, especially because I have a job during the day. But we just hired a new nurse, so we're grateful for that, and hopefully we can keep the fundraising going so we can afford to keep paying her to keep her around. But it all stems from an attitude. I remember when Drew's accident first happened, I reminded myself and everyone who came in the house that no matter how tough we had it, he had it worse. So my rule is no matter what you was going through, if you walked through the door of his room, you left your problems behind. You brought in your best attitude, because whatever you're dealing with, what he's dealing with is worse. And so it's kind of a mantra in the house. You got to see the positives. You got to see what's going right. You got to see what the possibilities are. You can't lose your ability to dream and hope, and you can't lose your ability to have faith. And this is something that's very important in our house. And because of it, I think we do what we do pretty well. But yeah, we spend a lot of time having to raise money to cover the costs. I think right now, our out-of-pocket costs just to supplement his nursing is pushing closer to $80-some thousand a year, which is much or more than a lot of people earn. So that's a challenge, but the three of us, my wife, Tracy, and Drew, and myself, we work at it every day, and we've been blessed to have a lot of very good supporters and people who understand and are inspired by Drew and inspired by our commitment and our goals and our determination, that they contribute and they help us get through. But sometimes it's nerve-wracking, wondering, is it going to be enough? One of my biggest fears at night, I sleep and I think about my son and I go, gosh, he's so positive. He goes to this every day, but I wonder sometimes, did he ever think, laying in his bed, is this going to be my last night in my own bed? Will this be my last night in my own home? And no parent wants that for their child. So I work harder and harder. We're working on a reoccurring donation program to try to generate enough money so I can look at my son and say, you can go to bed every night and wake up knowing that this is your home and you're not going anywhere. So that's what we work towards.
And you and your son, I can tell, have a very strong bond.
Absolutely. We're a lot alike and a lot different in a lot of ways. Believe it or not, he's learned to speak very well and put himself out there, but he's the introvert of the family. He's a very calming force. He's more quiet than he is outspoken, but he's grown into that role because that's what his life requires, and it fits him well. He does well at it, but so we kind of balance each other out between him, my wife Tracy, and I. It's kind of a good mixture of different personalities that makes it all work. The common thread is that we believe that he's going to walk again. We're committed to doing what we got to do to give him that opportunity, and we don't see us ever allowing him being in a situation where he has to be relegated to a life to die because of something like money. Be a sad thing to say that he can't stay in his home and continue to live his life and continue to inspire others and continue to help others because there's not enough money to pay for the people he needs to help him. So we fight every day to make sure that's not the case. And so far, so good. Year 13.
You're a great dad by every standard that I could even think of.
Thank you.
I'm really glad that you're his dad in his life.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I got to say this, though. If you think about this, I'm glad I got an opportunity to speak about our situation, but there's so many families out here who are in our situation of some sort. They're caring for a parent, a child, an aunt, an uncle, a sibling, every day of their life. And it's a commitment, and it's a challenge. And I think more people need to understand that this is a reality for a lot of families. And it's a passion, it's a labor of love, but it's also a thing that needs to be made more aware of so more people can figure out how they can help those families and support those families, because I think every family person would agree that if you have a loved one, they're always better off in the home with their family than they are in some institution. And why would we not want to do our small part to make that possible for any family dealing with something like what we're dealing with? But there's a lot of strong families out here who are fighting the same fight we're fighting every day, and I praise them all and I pray for them all the time. I just love my son, and there's absolutely nothing in the world I wouldn't do for him. And I think I'm speaking for many parents who feel the same way about their children.
If you're having any kind of mental health crisis, we can help. At Team Wellness Crisis Centers, you'll be seen immediately, stabilized in our own private facility, and given all the care you need to get better. Don't wait. call the Team Wellness Helpline at 1-888-813-TEAM. It could be your lifeline.
Being a caregiver is a really hard job. It takes courage to reach out and admit that it's hard. There's physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion. Resentment and anger at it all falling to you. Depression and despair knowing there's no end. There's guilt at feeling negative about doing this. There's often disruption of relationships. There can be heightened anxiety. People can experience mental and cognitive burnout, or frustration at having no one to vent to. There's a sense of feeling alone, isolated, and trapped. Stresses including financial, legal, insurance, and retaining skilled help. There's putting all your dreams and plans on hold, worrying about what happens after you're gone. And finally, stress of having to put on a happy face.
Thank you for joining us today and sharing the intimate and heroic story of one man who joyfully and unselfishly devotes himself every day of his life to caring for his beloved son. If you'd like to learn more about this or any mental health issue, visit us on our website at myhealthymind.com, on Facebook at My Healthy Mind Show, or on Twitter. If you missed any of our past episodes, you can view them on YouTube. You'll find a complete list on our website. And as you follow us on Facebook and Twitter, please feel free to comment and to suggest ideas for new shows. We'll see you next week for another edition of My Healthy Mind. Let's talk about it. Be sure to like and subscribe for more episodes of My Healthy Mind.